name is Pavan Davra, and welcome to Precious Brain Lab, where we talk on brain disorders, brain connectivity, and brain development. In today's episode, we are going to understand and unfold a part of bipolar disorder, what exactly this is all about, and what it does to our brain, especially when we try to understand the bipolar disorder with the neurobiological factor or the part of neuroscience. What are we supposed to do to manage bipolar disorder? In today's episode, we're going to deeply unfold those questions to why it is very difficult for bipolar disorder to manage and maintain a level of calmness and to be more productive. Why is it so difficult? And what are we supposed to do in understanding bipolar disorder? So, to begin with, I've got a chart, and I want to begin with a chart that what exactly bipolar disorder is. So as you can see, that impulsivity, reality, low, high, gene modification, these are the pillars of bipolar disorder. Now, impulsivity is because bipolar disorder is generally is due to gene modification, and that's a disease, and it's nothing like something that goes inside and you're wrecked and blah blah blah. No, nothing. To be honest, that gene modification plays epigenetic modification plays an important role in bipolar disorder, and due to gene modification you would see that there is a problem with so-called impulsivity. Then there are the reality seems to be different as the brain starts to get impulsive, or the brain is extremely stimulated, and then there are these highs and lows in between all of this. So it's a simple term. These things are for bipolar disorder. These are the pillars of bipolar disorder: the highs, the lows, the impulsivity, the reality, and the gene modification. If the impulsivity increases, then the reality changes the outcome. We all know that. Bipolar disorder has serious problems in maintaining or controlling their behaviors. They can get violent, they can get extremely, mood swings, they can harm themselves, they can commit suicide, they can even be defensive. But one of the biggest traits of bipolar disorder is they cannot accept they're wrong, or they have bipolar disorder. Two things that we need to understand. One is they'll never accept they're wrong, and second, that they have bipolar disorder. This is a very, very interesting chapter to understand. The bipolar disorder is very, very difficult to treat, because once they accept, and some of them don't even agree to treat, because they think that I'm not mentally ill, and whatever they're going to do to me is going to harm me even more. I don't like those medications. I don't like the psychiatric department. I don't like to go to counseling. I don't like the therapies, and all of those things are seriously being defensive and guarded when you're in bipolarity. So one of the biggest challenges that bipolar disorder cannot accept treatment, and that is one of those traits of bipolar disorder. Even if you take them to psychiatric department, they'll be so defensive that they're not going to accept the treatment as well. Some of them might, but not most of them deny the fact that they need to be treated. They'll go untreated, And they'll say like, you know what, I really don't need this. I don't need any of this. You can do whatever you want. And they can get aggressive as well. So that's the first part of bipolar disorder, is that these traits of impulsivity, reality, highs, lows, of mood swings, and gene modification, they play an important role in bipolar disorder. And that's what happens at the very beginning stages, when they start to realize that something is wrong with me. But not all of them are so smart enough to realize that, okay, I'm doing something wrong here. I need to treat myself. Most of them completely deny the fact that they need treatment. And they live in horrible conditions. They take help of drugs. They take help of alcohol. They take help of stimulated, stuff like coffee. Drinking excessive coffee, or let's say they like to shop a lot, abusive shopping. These are the traits of bipolar disorder. They can get aggressive when they hit the reality. Even though they're supposed to do it, they won't. They're not going to do it. So that's the first part of the reality of bipolar disorder. The second thing that we need to understand is, what are the types of bipolar disorder? Because that also plays an important role. Bipolarity is something that affects the mental health. What are those mental health effects? Because in this episode, we're going to understand and unfold the neurobiological factors of bipolar disorder, which means that beyond the physical, what do you see outside is not everything. And today we're going to unfold all of that. So how cool it's going to be that you'll able to understand the inside functions of bipolar disorder. So as you can see, what are the types of bipolar disorder? The first one is bipolar 1, then comes bipolar 2, then comes these sections of bipolar disorder, which is cyclothymia. Then comes rapid cycling bipolar, bipolar with mixed features, bipolar with seasonal pattern, and unspecified bipolar. All of these traits are seriously about bipolar disorder. And the way it affects the brain is absolutely insane. People with bipolar disorder faces a lot of problems at the early stages, and they can be seriously damaging their brain if they don't treat themselves. In today's episode, you will understand, if you don't treat yourself, then how the brain is going to damage you completely. And then all of those things are not reversible. It's going to remain that way. All you can do is practice to stay in control. That's the end stage of bipolar disorder. And some of the patients, oh my God, they just live in that dark mode. They become so toxic that the family also cannot support them anymore, because they're past the stage of treating themselves. The end result of bipolar disorder is simply take a shock treatment. And shock treatment, we cannot assure you that it can be treated, or it'll be untreatable at the end. It's a very sad thing about bipolar disorder, because it's related to genetics. So if you try to understand that how genetics are changing inside of you, then it's really easy for you to understand that you need to treat yourself at a very early stages. It's pretty easy to treat yourself at the very beginning. And if you don't do that, then your genetics will start to change and behave in a certain manner. And in the end, it's going to be untreatable. Well, we've reached to this part of understanding that how, it can be untreatable. But let us further understand about inside section of the brain, because I'm really curious. I got a whole lot of things to cover up, and even I got some information. I got some here, this paper lying here. I got a lot of stuff to talk on, a lot of ideas and understanding on the brain regions and how it's going to affect you. All of those stuff is going to be out today. So, as you can see, increased risk of suicide, bipolar disorder is also associated with considerable medical comorbidities, including cardio and cerebrovascular disease and metabolic and endocrine disorder, which, when combined with neuropsychiatric morbidity and suicidality, have been found to reduce life expectancy by an average of 11 years in females and 10 years in males afflicted with bipolarity. This is really, really, really hard to understand. That this mechanism has several things that's going to destroy your functionality outside. You must have met certain bipolar disorder patients. Generally, they are like gaining a lot of weight. Example, you must have seen that, right? Gaining a lot of weight constantly. Why is that? And why? Then later stages, they agree that they were too toxic and they were creating problems for their family. Why is that realization is so late? So among these glial elements are microglia, the brain's primary immune elements, which appear to be overactive in context of bipolarity. This is neurobiology. The microglia, we're going to talk in the next slide as well. This microglia is very, very important in connectivity and having a sense of connection between the brain regions. When they're overactive means, I'll give an example. Let's say you have a printing machine, and your printing machine has a capacity of, let's say, 12 hours. If you exceed beyond 12 hours, the machine will overheat and it will stop. Isn't it? The next example, if you go for a party, if you go for a trash party, and you're feeling good, you're feeling high, you're dancing, you're enjoying, but then you're not leveling up to the type of music that's going on. So you want to overstimulate yourself. What are you going to do? You're going to drink a lot of alcohol, like tequila shots, or let's say vodka, or let's say scotch, whiskey, whatever, you're just going to drink straight. Like you want that stimulation. Then the other thing is, let's say you smoke a weed, or you take a sniff of cocaine, or you take meth, LSD, sort of like this, just to stimulate, to go beyond your strength. So that capacity is actually utilized by the outer chemicals. So when you overstimulate these cells, then there is bipolarity. You're overactive means you're doing more beyond the body could do. You know what I mean, right? Let's say you can do up to 4 hours, 5 hours of certain job. So when you start to do more, your body stresses out. When your body stresses out, then there is an overactive of these cells. Your body will get tired. You're stressing out more. Then there'll be highs and lows of moods. And if you continue to do that, then there are stages where you can reach the part of major depression. And major depression, can lead to bipolar disorder or can lead to schizophrenics. Because these all are in alignment. I will talk on schizophrenic in some other video, which is going to be dedicated for schizophrenic itself. But this is what happens to the brain. So you're overstimulating it. You know what? Try to understand this. Learn to connect with your body. If you know you can't do it, stop there. Because these cells, when they get overactive, you're finished. Your life is done. There is nothing you can do more about it then. You need help. And if you exceed that time frame, then your mechanism will behave in a toxic manner. That is bipolar disorder. Toxicity is number one in bipolar disorder. And then what happens is, when we reach to this stage, let us try and understand more on the microglia. The glial cells, which I am more pretty much investigating on. I like to investigate more on the cellular level as well. That gives us more answers to the questions on bipolar disorder as well. So, as you can see, that there is this accelerated loss of volume in the brain areas known to be essential for mood regulation and cognitive function. Consistent findings have emerged at a cellular level, providing evidence that bipolar disorder is reliably associated with dysregulation of glial neural interconnections. And you would see that a picture right there, that's a glial cells. And those are activated glial cells, which means when they are, you're going to see different types of problems in there that can also lead to insomnia. If they're overactive, then it can lead to insomnia as well. And then what happens is, when the glial cells are overactive, you're also going to find that overstimulation found in the part of sympathetic nervous system, which means, again, bipolar disorder is going to be seriously affected when the sympathetic nervous system is overactivation. You're going to find there. Then what happens is, these findings are consistent with changes in the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which is HPA axis, which are known to drive inflammatory activation. In addition to an increased risk of suicide, bipolar disorder is also associated with considerable medical morbidities and also cardio and cerebral vascular disease. I've already talked about this, and I'm still saying this, that hypothalamus endocrine changes, I talked at the beginning. This endocrine changes is going to seriously change the activation of bipolar disorder, along with the activation of glial cells. The part of connectivity and the sympathetic nervous system right at the back, and it goes to the spine, the autonomous nervous system, they all are disturbed. You must have seen, I'll give an example. Let's say a bipolar disorder is sitting, and they've been doing such certain work, and they're taking their medications on time. So when they go to sleep, this is the beginning stages of the treatment. So when they go to sleep and they wake up in the morning, they're not feeling good. There's a severe mood swings, and they'll call up the doctor and say, well, I'm not feeling good, and I've had really bad mood swings. I'm feeling sad, highs, lows, I'm not feeling good. Why is that? Because overstimulation of these glial cells is changing the plasticity. How dangerous that is. Think about it. The stimulation, why there is a stimulation? This is deep science. Now try and understand what I want to make you understand. Why there is stimulation in these cells. In human beings, we have somatic sensory. The eyes, the taste, the olfactory, and the ears and the touch. When there is a change in the genetic, which is epigenetic modification, there is a certain transition that takes place in bipolar disorder, is changing in the plasticity. During this time, the genes are also changing along with it. So when there is a change in the genetics, there is a change in the wiring. Changing in the wiring means leading to maniac phases. And maniac phases means you're about to get really, really wild. Why you'll get wild? Because the genetic is changing. And that's a really sad part. Because when the genetic is changing, then there are changes in the brain activity. And whatever that information will go in, it's going to be toxic. And most of the bipolar disorder, they get into any relationship because of the changes in them. They think that I'm going to find somebody who's going to make me feel happy. That is also, we're going to talk on why this is happening in this video. But this is because of the wiring of the change in the brain. The most importantly is the biggest problem in bipolar disorder is the dysregulation of glia neural connections. Not so good. Why? Because there is a deficit in one section of the brain where the brain cannot understand what is right and wrong. It doesn't understand. Because they lose that control. They lose it completely. Imagine that there is a car, you're driving a car. If your car goes out of control, you're controlling it, right? But when it goes out of control, what happens? You freak out because you're driving that car. The brakes are not working, the steering is not in your control, and you're freaking out. This is what happens in the brain of a bipolar disorder. When they get into a maniac phase, they're out of control. They don't know what to do. Because the autonomous nervous system, which is sympathetic nervous system, the limbic system, the prefrontal cortex, the hypothalamus, the amygdala, all of this, is overactive. It's going beyond the regulation. And the patient cannot understand. They can not only harm others, but in maniac phases, they can damage themselves. They'll throw things. They'll do wild activities. They'll even go out and want some drink to stimulate their brain. They want that, they want that fizz. They want drugs. They want to have, they want to go for crazy parties. They want to enjoy. But that thing is overstimulating. And one of the biggest trait in bipolar disorder at the beginning stages is they're too talkative. They can talk too much. And they'll keep talking like hell. And that talking is very bad. Please try to understand. Because the brain is overstimulating, the patient keeps talking, and they just keep talking for hours. And they can blabber, they can talk. And the other part of bipolar disorder is they can also be seriously abusive. In seconds. I'm talking in seconds. They're talking in normal pace and they can get aggressive and they can be violent. They go so high on their pitch and then they panic. Some of them don't realize this. What they're doing is wrong. the toxicity is really bad inside the brain, which is why I'm saying learn to understand bipolar disorder. We're going to talk on every term today. So once that we've reached here, the most important thing before we go ahead is in bipolar disorder, structural brain abnormalities in prefrontal cortex have been confirmed in the post-mortem studies and with structural MRI. For example, subgenual portion of the anterior cingulate cortex was reduced in volume in patients. Look at this. With bipolar disorder, with a family history of affective disorder. Do you understand what anterior cingulate cortex do to you as a normal human being? Anterior cingulate cortex is actually cognitive processes, motivation, decision making, learning, cost benefit calculation, conflict, and error monitoring. Look how much this one section does. You know, if this section is completely changes, then imagine what's going to happen to the brain. Seriously, I'm saying seriously. One of the traits that I talked about in bipolar disorder, they're too impulsive. They cannot make a decision. Now let's say if someone has a family history of bipolar disorder and their siblings deny the fact, or their kids deny the fact they don't want to treat because they don't have any bipolar disorder, but they do have, and they'll pass on those genes to their children as well. They will never accept this. Why? Because they think they don't have. They think they're normal. But they're very aggressive. They're bad. They can get abusive. And they can choose to remain in that zone for many years. And what do? They choose to take drugs. They choose to take alcohol. And they like to party a lot. They have a really, really high sexual drive. And they can switch off quickly and they can get really, really violent. They do have the problem with sympathetic nervous system. It's really, really highly activated and they don't realize this. They think they're too smart, they're too intelligent, but the reality is they're nothing, but they need therapy. And if they don't take that therapy, they're about to get worsened with time. They're codependent on drugs and alcohol, and that's a reality. And they get toxic. They can fight with people. They can argue with people. They can destroy the other people's life as well. They can murder people as well when they're in extreme bipolarity. It's a fact. It's not normal. If they don't treat themselves at the right time, they can manipulate death. They can cheat others, and they can also get violent. This is coming from family history. I'm not saying this. These are the facts from the MRI scans of people having people who are having family history of bipolar disorder. So that's another trait of bipolarity. Then we try to understand more on deeper level what exactly is bipolar disorder is. So due to abnormal reward circuitry and social interaction, bipolar disorder does not accept treatment easily. Abnormal reward circuitry and social interaction. Excuse me. This is because, well, the biggest problem is, what is that circuitry? That circuitry is also called as mesolimbic circuitry. There are many others as well. Monoamine, receptors involved with, dopamine receptors as well. The biggest trait is abnormal reward circuitry, means they'll do anything to get things out from people, from stuff. They'll do anything. And that circuitry is so dangerous that they can also murder somebody or kill themselves. Excuse me. One of the biggest problems with bipolar disorder is their communication with social people. At the beginning, it may feel like, oh, this person is so good and he's so nice. He's, I really like him. He's so charming, or he's so good. But actually inside, they're wrecked. So as you get to know them, you might want to run away from there, because it's very difficult to understand why this person is behaving in such a way, and why is he so aggressive and he's so rude to me, or he's talking so bad to me. I'm not really happy with this person, whether he's my friend or he's my boyfriend or whatever that is, girlfriend, boyfriend. He'll never last, because the biggest problem with bipolar disorder, like I said, is a gene modification. And they'll continue to do that because they cannot find themselves in the right place. The head is changing, the brain is changing constantly. Stimulation is happening inside. Let's say, I'll give an example. There are two cars. One car is a normal Toyota. It's going at a normal speed, like about 80 kilometers or 100 kilometers. And then there is a car that passes by, and that is Ferrari. It's going at a really top speed of 250 kilometers per hour. Look at the top speed and look at yours. That stimulation, that Ferrari, is a bipolar disorder brain. So when it matches to a normal condition, the person thinks, what is this happening? This is so abnormal. I mean, I cannot see it zoom, and that thing inside the brain is so powerfully stimulating that even they don't have control over it. They cannot control it. It's just out of their control. They'll do anything because they're trying to connect with that stimulation. That stimulation is high, so they're trying to match with that stimulation. And that stimulation is so high that they'll do anything. They can also do certain things for hours because the brain is constantly firing. It's not stopping. Please try to understand what I'm trying to say. To match with that stimulation. So match with that stimulation means, let's say that Ferrari went at 250 kilometers and yours is 80. You want to match with that speed. So you want to just speed up. You're struggling with that speed. And that is what's happening inside the brain and outside. They're struggling to match. They're struggling hard. And that is why the patient cannot understand what is happening to the brain. Is they cannot understand why this is happening. And that is very dangerous. And this is what bipolar disorder is. They're struggling to keep up with that pace. They will do certain activity for hours. And you will say, it's time to sleep. What the hell are you doing with your closet? It's all kept in there. Why are you changing it? Or let's say, what are you, why are you walking around so much? Sit down in one place. Or let's say, why are you shopping so much? You're done with your shopping and you're still out there. What are you doing out there? Come home right now. And they'll still keep doing it because they're trying to match with that pace. They cannot do it on their own. It's very difficult to manage it because it's overstimulating. It's fiery and you cannot control it. That is bipolar disorder. And then what happens is therapeutic methodologies that reverse the autonomic, neuroendocrine, and immune system that are characteristics of disorder that almost certain contribute to the high degree of medical morbidities observed in bipolar disorder. See, these things are very important that I'm talking about. One of them is neuroendocrine, autonomic system, and the immune system. Three things describe bipolar disorder. The autonomic system is overstimulating because of the changes in the brain wiring. So each time there's a stimulation, sympathetic nervous system stimulates really high. The patient gets hyperactive. They'll keep doing things. They keep doing stuff. They repeat things. Suppose, let's say, this is the brush. Just an example. They take this brush, they'll keep like this. Done. They'll pick up again. They'll do something, they'll keep again. They'll pick up, they'll do something about, something with this brush, and then they'll keep somewhere else. Then they'll pick up, they'll do something else. What is happening here? This is that wiring changing. The brain isn't running at a fast pace, and they don't know what to do with it. They want to do the activity. They want to match it with the brain pace. So they'll keep doing it. They'll keep certain activity. They'll keep doing it. And they'll keep it. They repeat it for hours. This results with time, OCD. Also comes with it. It comes with shocking changes in the brain. So there are multiple problems that are going to come up. Depression, bipolar disorder, OCD. Because they're matching with the brain. And OCD means you will keep cleaning your closet. You will keep doing things. Cleaning the home, cleaning the closet, or something or the other, cleaning the kitchen, repeating things again and again. Cleaning things again and again. That's because of the overstimulation in the brain. Finish. And I cannot do that. And that is the biggest problem with bipolar disorder. The changing. You see what is happening. A maniac phases means you've gone overstimulation, losing control. How? I'll give you an example. Let's say you hold a wire in the hand. The wire is turned on. And you're doing something with that wire. You're trying to hold it. You're trying to adjust that wire settings. So catching it in the hand. Something happens and there's a short circuit. And it gives you that shock. Like boom, shock. You're shaking. And boom, you leave the wire. And it just hits you really hard. That's what happens in mania phases in bipolar disorder. Boom, they go out of control. And it is so toxic that you may have to hold them, grab them, try to control them. Hold on, don't do it. Stop it. Shut up, sit down. That is beyond overstimulation. It's a shock in the brain. And they're going to do all kinds of craziness because that plasticity, that part of that connection is releasing a lot of cortisol inside of you. Changes in the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, releasing all kinds of these cortisol, then releasing norepinephrine, epinephrine. These things are stimulating the brain on a higher pace. Finish. You cannot do anything at that point. Plasticity changes, prefrontal cortex changes, and the volume in the prefrontal cortex reduces with time. The more stimulation and the more the changes in prefrontal cortex. Now I'll give you a great understanding on prefrontal cortex. I do a lot of research on this, so I'm going to tell you something on prefrontal cortex today. If you continue to stimulate your brain with outside interference like coffee, drugs, alcohol, or even chemically based food, which have a lot of chemicals in there, and you stimulated, your prefrontal cortex will change its plasticity. Changes are going to be found in the prefrontal cortex. Changes in the prefrontal cortex means losing your self-control, losing the power of understanding, and lessen the power of decision making. Finish. This is what happens in bipolar disorder. Can they make a right decision? Unless they're not treated, they'll do all kinds of nonsense to destroy their brain. And that is the reality of bipolar disorder. So now that we've reached here, let us try and understand the inside genetics, what exactly happens inside the brain of bipolar disorder. And then we'll get along further with all of these stuff as well. We're also going to understand on medications and therapies as well. So it's going to be a great way of starting with bipolar disorder. I will come up with several videos in future as well on bipolar disorder. This is just the beginning. Let's just say that we're just talking on bipolar disorder today, but we're going to dive deep even more on bipolar disorder in coming future as well. So, as you can see, that there is this genetic modification. That is the first thing that happens, epigenetic modification. Then comes dysregulation of neural circuitry, gray matter reduction. I talked about this. Gray matter reduction means you're about to lose control over yourself. Then comes neuroendocrine, autonomic, and immune dysregulation. So this is one of the biggest problems after dysregulation of neural circuitry, gray matter reduction. Then after neuroendocrine, autonomic, and immune system dysregulation, then comes impact on a cellular level. This is also, I talked about microglia and glia, where you're going to find overactivation of these cells. Then the outcome what? Outside. What do you see outside? You will see emotional problems, dysregulation, cognitive dysregulation, behavior problems, and physical and verbal abuse. This is how from inside the circuitry is working of bipolar disorder. This circuitry is very, very, very vast, and it's big, and it can destroy the human being's brain. How can it destroy? Let us find out more on this, because I got something here to talk on, is malfunction. This is very important. This is very, very important. I'm talking on this now. Please listen carefully. Malfunction of CANCA1C gene. This is gene type. What is that? CACNA1C. This is a gene code, gene type. Has associated with cognitive and attention problems, both of which play an important role in bipolar psychopathology. Then altered NCAN, neurocan gene, neurocan. Function show manic-like behaviors, a brain-expressed extracellular matrix glycoprotein. I just got this from a place of a couple of scientists who researched on this, so I thought I should share with you as well. These are not my findings. Let me clear this on this video. This is from another scientist who has done these findings. And unfortunately, I didn't get his name, or else I would have just put it up in here as well. But whoever that is, thank you for bringing this up. It helps a lot for people to understand that there is a gene modification that's happening. And because of these gene modification, changes in the prefrontal cortex, changes in behavior due to neurocan, you could see all of this happening outside. And this is the reality of bipolar disorder. So when we're talking on gene modification, cognitive and attention problems, how many of bipolar disorder have attention problems? They would listen and then they'll switch off. I know what that is. They'll go to sleep, they'll talk less. Excuse me. They're not going to pay attention much. They'll switch off quickly. Even if you argue with them, they won't pay attention. They just, I know, don't tell me. And if you force them, they can get violent. And that's the reality of bipolar disorder. In these sections that I'm talking about, neurocan, what neurocan can do, altered, which means there is a change in NCAN, neurocan. If there's a change in that genetic maniac phase, they're going to start to beat up people. They're going to, beat themselves up. They're going to throw things. They're going to abuse you like hell. And they'll be so defensive, they're going to blame on you like hell. But there is also an advantage of bipolar disorder. What is that? That I need to talk on this is methylphenidate is to increase central dopamine and norepinephrine activity, which impacts executive and attentional function. This is methylphenidate, which is Ritalin tablet, which is used for ADHD, and it is also used in students as well. Students in any class, if they want to study really hard, they're not paying attention, so they take these medications and they get overstimulation in the brain. It will improve. It improves. I'm not saying it doesn't improve. Improves productivity, improves attention, and all of it. It's better than coffee, but it's very dangerous. Because once you get addicted to this, then in a normal phase, you're not going to like any of this. You want to take the medication and then pay attention. If you don't take it, you'll be restless. And because of this tablet, how many students, then they jump to drugs? I'm not liking this anymore. I want to take cocaine. I want to take meth. I want to take LSD. I want to take weed, smoke pot. And from Ritalin to drugs is a journey. Methylphenidate. And I've been looking out for these people, I'm trying to understand their brain. They're running at a fast pace, especially when they're being productive with that tablet. I've seen the way they behave. They're running at a fast pace. They're not normally stabilized. So speech impairments after they start to stimulate with drugs. Speech impairment, from Ritalin to drugs, speech impairments. It's going to be the construction of words doesn't make any sense because they're losing the wiring. The brain is overstimulating. It doesn't match the frequency. These gag reflexes, you're going to find problems in these gag reflexes. They're not able to speak well, especially when they're coming from a journey of Ritalin to other drugs. If you're talking in normal, they don't take any Ritalin. If they're stimulating with just normal alcohol, or they're stressing out in family issues, they're stressing out being single mom, they're stressing out being in an abusive relationship, they're stressing out being in a toxic marriage. Any of these traits, if they're stressing it out, then you're going to find a different kind of maniac phase in bipolar disorder. But, like I said, there's something more to this. What is that? If it's coming from family history, this is for family history, please try to understand. People from family history or a sudden change in the bipolar genetic modification. They, if they're aware of the bipolar disorder, I'm talking about these people in this range, family history of bipolar disorder and sudden change in genetics, and they realize they have bipolar disorder, they tend to be smarter than the others who don't realize that they have bipolar disorder. They become intelligent. So one advantage is they become intelligent, and the other part is that some of them choose to remain in bipolar because they only take intelligence in them. They get very intelligent, but they're very destructive. They have logic, but they are destructive. This category of bipolar disorder is very, very dangerous because they can harm people. They can harm people. If they get into any jobs, they get into any relationships, they can not only manipulate, but they can damage their colleagues. They can seriously make the other person believe that, I am right and you're wrong. That's very dangerous. Because if they don't treat themselves, then it's going to be seriously destroying their life. How? Epigenetic changes reflecting an alteration of genes expressions influenced by life events may play a significant role in different phases of bipolar illness. Epigenetic changes, I talked about this. This is what the finding is. I do this research to understand bipolar disorder. This research is very, very essential. If you understand what I'm trying to say is, life experiences is also important. Bipolar disorder, life experiences changes the plasticity on a deeper level. Axons, dendrites, myelin sheaths, then talk about the CSF. I didn't talk about it, I'm telling you now. Cerebral spinal fluid changes in them. Finish. That changes. Imagine what is that? It's a nourishment to the brain. I'll give an example. Let's say a patient had a tumor right up here. Okay, right up here. This spot. This is the left side, the left hemisphere. They have a tumor right here. Now the tumor is deep in the left hemisphere. So what they do is they take the brain, they cut that part out, and they cut the part of inside of it. So a lot of portion of the brain is cut. Now the left hemisphere has a hole. Imagine there are two hemispheres. One side there is a hole. Hole inside the brain. Big hole. What is going to happen to that patient? Think about it. He'll have speech impairments. He won't be able to walk pretty well. He won't be able to talk pretty well. He won't be able to swallow food pretty well because the functionality is not pretty good. But what happens is cerebral spinal fluid will enter that hole, that part of that missing part, and it starts to nourish that area. So if you give at least 1 year time, the patient speaks again. How cool is that? That is cerebral spinal fluid. If there is a reduction of this fluid, the patient gets out of control. And this is one of that happens in bipolar disorder. Gray matter reduction, cerebral spinal fluid, changes in the fluid. Then there is problem with microglia and glia cells, overactivation of sympathetic nervous system. And then there is the problem with overstimulation of your brain, results in manic phases. How dangerous is this? They need treatment, they need therapy. And none of this can be treated with only medication. It's not possible. Look what I'm talking about. And furthermore, repeated manic episodes can cause oxidative damage to DNA, interfering with further DNA methylation, hence limiting the possibility of turning certain genes off. My goodness. This is very, very crucial to understand what I'm trying to say here. If you realize that if I switch off certain genes, then I'm switching off the functionality of that brain. Do you realize that? How bipolar disorder can get destructive. This is that problem. I told you, even at 1 second, if you think that you're getting into manic phases, don't wait. Because the genes are changing. And if they're changing, then you cannot modify if you continue to remain in there for months and years. I've seen certain bipolar patients where they get destructive till the end of their life. Their life is so destructive that in the end, their death is horrible. I'm sorry to say this. I've seen certain patients in my life, how they've seriously damaged their body. It's way too much because there is a certain DNA change that's happening inside. I talked about gene CAC-NA1C. I have different sections. I've got a lot of genetic names. I can put that up on my description box below when I put up this video, I'm sorry. So you can look up for the genes names as well. These genes names are the modification of the genes that happens in bipolar disorder. But I've just given one because it's specifically associated with cognitive and attention problems. So there are many genes that are involved in it, and they're deep. So we are still researching on these type of genes to understand the functionality of bipolar disorder. So it's not just related to certain change in the environment and you have bipolar disorder. This is related to the genetics as well, which is why family history of genetic changes in bipolar disorder destroys a patient's life as well. So now that we realize that how the brain is actually getting affected by the bipolar disorder when they get into manic phases, and the genetics keep changing along with it, then these regions also play an important role in terms of understanding and learning the new way to cope with bipolar disorders. Again, there are many therapies and research that's going around with bipolar disorder, while the most important thing that people should learn is how to adapt with these new changes in the brain that's happening during the part of bipolar disorder. So when we understand all of these traits, then let us first try and understand how does the brain connect with each other in terms of neuroscience. So as you can see, that the most important thing that you see in bipolar disorder is the thalamus, the cingulate gyrus, the part of fornix, then you see prefrontal cortex, nucleus accumbens, amygdala, and hippocampus. Also the part of hypothalamus, which is vastly involved in bipolar disorder. These regions are very, very important. Why do I need to speak on this? Is because this circuitry, what if most of the information that is out which is coming out from amygdala and then reaching out to the other regions, what's going to happen to the patient? The patient will start to behave abnormal, because amygdala means you're being defensive, and then increasing the part of autonomic nervous system, which is the sympathetic nervous system, changes in the plasticity of the brain, which means abnormality will be found in prefrontal cortex, including abnormalities in nuclear accumbens and the overly activated amygdala, with reduction in gray matter and reduction in hippocampus as well. So these regions are very, very important in learning and memorizing and understanding how to communicate with other people, especially when it comes to the terms of communicating with the other human beings and with yourself. These two are, you're going to find a dysregulation in these sections in bipolar disorder. Another section that is DMN. Wow. DMN, default mode network, includes self-reflection, processing social information, creative work, future planning, reminiscing, and conjuring of autobiographical memories. The functionality of DMN. Now, how does this role of DMN plays an important role in bipolar disorder? By default, listen to this carefully, by default, the brain gets into defensive mode when it comes to bipolar disorder. They have this part of the wiring that actually gets into aggressive pretty more often. It's an aggressive mode that goes into default mode section that automatically they start to get violent. They can start to speak pretty bad and ugly. They can get emotional. They can get depressive. These are all the traits that we find in bipolar disorder due to the automatic. Like, you don't do it intentionally, like you want to do it. It's actually by default it's happening, especially aggression. Default, boom, finish. They start to be abusive. They start to beat the other person. They can get pretty toxic. This is because of the wiring that keep changing and that DNM has picked up that sort of behavior. So automatically by default it'll switch off. You don't have to put any effort, especially when healthy human beings. Default mode network is pretty good in adapting and learning new things, especially let's say for the first time I go from my home to the office. I will learn that route, the path. So the next time I don't need to relearn it. By default, I remember it and boom, I know where I need to go. In healthy, this doesn't happen in bipolar disorder. Because by default, they get toxic and they can beat up the other person. So the DMN is sort of impaired in bipolar disorder. So instead of learning, they might get really aggressive and they start to beat up the other person. Now, when it comes to the facial expressions, when we've talked on these terms, then there's also connection to the facial expressions, right? So how can you miss that as well? So as you can see, the facial expressions of bipolar disorder, you would see happy, surprised, sad, angry, fearful, disgust. They go beyond normal. They go beyond normal, which means we know what the normal expression is. But when they're happy, they go beyond happiness, which means they have an abnormal facial expression. They go beyond that happiness. If they're surprised, they'll go beyond that surprise element in healthy human beings. If they're sad, they'll go beyond normal sadness. Then they'll go angry, which means they're going beyond the normal angry person. Fearful, they'll panic. Then disgust, they'll go beyond feeling disgust. So imagine that stimulation that's happening. Imagine this is the level of stimulation of a healthy human being. They go beyond that. They go beyond that. So they're happy, like, And then they'll start to behave. They'll go beyond that, that happiness. They'll be, one of those things that they feel is that the brain is getting choked, and they feel that they're going to die. They go beyond this, which means that stimulating is beyond. The excitation of the neurons is firing at a really high pace. When they're happy, now imagine they're fearful, they'll shut off. They'll be like shocked. They'll cut off, they run away, they'll do whatever they can. But they'll go beyond this. It's not normal. They can feel it, after that incident happened, they still feel fearful. They'll imagine things. They'll do things because the wiring is absolutely getting seriously, intensely, connections are happening inside. They're losing the power of the prefrontal cortex and they're getting crazy. That's the reality of bipolar disorder. And then what happens is the VMPFC, which is ventral medial prefrontal cortex, that section of, the prefrontal cortex, the frontal part, has a rich reciprocal connections with limbic information and the hypothalamus. If we talk on the limbic information cycle, which means it is interconnected with the part of frontal cortex. The communication that happens between the two, either it's going to be, it's going to give you, help you in learning and memorizing, or it's going to help you in destructive patterns. In both the condition, the information is actually back and forth. It's like, one is being analytical in one situation, and the other one is losing the control in being analytical, which means it'll go beyond analysis and start to beat up the other person. So that limbic information cycle is very important. It can be analytical, but moreover, limbic information cycle is all about getting aggressive. Very less chances of being analytical, because they keep repeating that, and it gets the brain gets stimulated, the brain gets defensive, this gets blocked, and boom, finish. I'm going to start to beat up this person. I'm not going to leave it. And they're going to get extremely violent. In one of the cases that I saw, that I was in a restaurant, and I'm not trying to downside in bipolar disorder, but this person started to behave abnormal. Now, I didn't know what was happening, but then the similarities that showed up was actually a bipolar disorder. This person, I wouldn't relate to man or female, but this person who was sitting there was extremely choosy and selective. And when the food was on the table, this person was excited. This person was feeling good, and they're eating, they're enjoying. But the most of the time, they were taking pictures, a lot of pictures. And then the stimulation increased after eating that food. They started to behave in a normal way. They were on top of their voice when they were talking to the other person. They were laughing loudly, which was going beyond the normalcy. It was stimulating on a high pace. And then what happened was they went out, and both of them, they started to smoke something. And I don't know what was that. They were sitting in the corner and they were smoking. And I went out. I was curious to know what was happening, because this was not normal. And when I saw outside, they started to smoke up weed outside. When they come inside, the stimulation started to control them a bit, which means they were feeling normal now. The weed was actually trying to control their brain stimulation. And the surprising part was they were just normal. And when they ate certain food in their mouth, they ordered something else, and they got pretty much wild. They started shouting because they didn't like the taste. From calm to excitation after the weed was smoked up. How can I say smoking the weed? When they smoked, the smell. The smell. I was standing in the corner. I was a distance away from them, but I could smell the weed. And that's why I went inside and I sat down. And when I saw those behaviors, they were calm, but excitation began from this to that in seconds. And they started shouting. And they started being abusive. They're trying to calm them down. They were not, because the stimulation was so high that they couldn't control their brain. And you could tell that by the way they behaved. They were in not some cheap side restaurant. They were in a good restaurant sitting there, and they were eating. Imagine that they were dressed well, but they're sitting down and they're behaving in a normal condition. Of course, there might be drugs involved, but the behavior was quite similar to bipolar disorder. It was clearly shown that was the highs and lows of their emotions, mood swings, their facial expressions were abnormal, and I was just sitting there and watching them. I did not do anything because I knew what was that. But what happened later, and surprising when they calmed down, they were, eating too much of carbs, one of the signs of bipolar disorder. They were eating too much of carbs. They kept eating a lot of carbs. And then they were excitations with chilies, with too much of salt adding in that food, which I'll come up in this slide as well. So excessive was happening in that table, and I was quietly watching. They were just going out of control after taking that weed. They were calm, but their behavior was like, they wanted more. That hunger, they want more. The part you're not adjusting, I want more. It's like, let's say if the normal table salt is 1 teaspoon in the entire food that we make for the family, or 1.5 tablespoon, or 1.5 teaspoon, or whatever that is you cook for the entire family, then when you give them, they want to add more salt to it to adjust with the wiring in the brain, the taste and the brain. Connection is happening. So the excitation is more. You see what I'm saying? It's just getting more. This is bipolar disorder. They go beyond that normal. And that's why things get really aggressive. And when we get to this part, that when I talked on the connections of medial prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, the part of VMPFC, we see that this section is kinda closing off. You see, some of the bipolar disorder who are not being treated, they're not on any medications, then they don't tend to have too much of salt. They'll use salt, but not too much. But they have a very, very violent behavior if they don't get treated. They will get violent. They have very bad aggression. They have a very negative pattern about others. They're too toxic. If you talk to them, they're too defensive. They'll be over smart, over analyzing. They'll use that Google a lot to check things. Everybody does. But for them, even if they go to the doctor, they'll talk to them, they'll say check. Because the wiring is gone, finished. They cannot understand. And they'll keep doing that. And what matches to their knowledge, well, they believe in that. They don't believe in a doctor. They say that doctor is mad. I don't believe in them. And they abuse that doctor as well. This is bipolar disorder. Patients who do not treat, they're so mad. And if they don't treat themselves, they're going to get really crazy with time. So let us get to the part of medication. And from medication, we'll realize what we need to do. So as you can see, medication is lithium. You would see DEPA, DEPA, DEPA is another medications, then lamictal, then comes depakine. Sorry for my pronunciations. And then there is equitro, and then there is Dopamax. These medications are, some of them, these are for bipolar disorder. Apart from that, you're also going to get mood stabilizers that's going to help you to settle up with the mood, which is the serotonin. When you're onset on these medications, these medications will help you at a certain time, but it's not going to give you much of the results. Why? Because these medications onsets are not so fruitful for all bipolar disorders. These medications will give you what you want. What is that? Calmness, relaxation. Not everybody is fully, completely treated by bipolar disorder. Not everybody. And that's a fact. Bipolar disorder cannot be treated itself by medications. It requires therapy as well. Therapy to understand what is right and wrong. But even though when you do these medications, one of the side effects is when you find serotonin. Serotonin medications tend to increase the part of eating a lot of carbs, increase the part of eating a lot of sweets, increase the part of, a lot of intake of salt, which is coming from the space of bipolar medications like lithium and the other ones that I talked on. These medications seriously changes a part of the wiring of the brain. They can keep you stable, though, for some time. But once you're taking these medications, you cannot stop them. Because it's keeping you in the regulation. And that's a sad part of these medications. You have to take them for years. And if you stop them, you're going to have withdrawal symptoms. You're also going to get into maniac phases. And you might also start to have problems with others, especially in terms of behavior and your food choices that you make. And then this is going to affect your part of your bipolar disorder. Whatever have been in balance is going to start to get in balance again. So the withdrawal symptoms of medications are going to happen. Once you take them, you cannot get rid of them. This is the fact of these medications. And then comes the part of, the part of therapy. One of the types of therapies in bipolar disorder, one of them is interpersonal, it's social rhythm therapy, which is IPS-RT, cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, and then psychoeducation, family-focused therapy. When we talk on these terms of therapies, apart from taking medications, I said it will improve, but it's not going to get rid of your bipolar disorder. You may have to keep a watch on you. You have to keep on with follow-ups with your therapist, your doctors, and that is the lifetime. It's not like it's going to be there for some period of time and you're free with it. No, you have to keep up with that, at least at the beginning, once in a month, then once you start to improve, once in 3 months, once in 6 months, then once in a year when you're completely stable, then you go out for once in a year and you talk to them. In case if you have any problem, you can go and talk to them in between as well. It depends on your progress report. These reports are going to tell you exactly how you're feeling and what you're doing, and your behavior also remains in balance. But what if those people who are not able to get treated, even after taking these medications, they're not able to treat themselves? Why? Because low level of serotonin is one of the biggest problem where the patients intensely take serotonin tablets to calm their moods, and that increases a lot of weight gain, and that also imbalances them a lot. Again, they get defensive, they get they cannot stay normal, they get defensive, and they also get over smart after taking these medications. Over smart means they will learn everything, and then you talk to them, they say, I know everything. You don't have to tell me. And they even talk in terms of medications, medical problems, and they'll be really smart. And then they say, I know everything, I don't need to know. That's because it is the brain wiring in such a way that they give validation to their brain. And when they get that validation finished, I know everything. I don't need to be treated. How dangerous that is. This is bipolar disorder, and they'll never get treated. Some of those bipolar disorders who come from a family history, they are so smart that they learn everything, but they will not be treated. They'll beat up their partners, they'll be abusive, they'll drink, they'll smoke, they have mood swings, they'll smoke drugs, they'll take drugs, but they'll never be treated. Because when you ask them, they'll give all kinds of medical explanation. It's like they have an intelligence, but their brain is finished. That one section is there, but the rest is all finished. They can manipulate, they can be abusive, they can even do all kinds of nonsense. They have high sexual drives, which means they cannot be satisfied with one person. I'm talking about people who know they're bipolar disorder, but they're being smart. Not everybody. This is one section of it that I'm talking on. And then they want to have sex with other people. Even in the marriage, they do, and they're saying that I'm loyal, but they'll go out and do all kinds of nonsense. So loyalty is finished. You cannot trust them. Because of the dopamine, the reward system is destroyed. It's imbalance. Dopamine is imbalance. And the more the excessive release of these reward, the circuitry is finished. They can even kill the other person. This is how bad bipolar is. So now that we've reached to this point, let us try and understand the nutrition part. What exactly they should not do and do in bipolar disorder in terms of nutrition, especially in terms of not to do. So what it is. So as you can see, excessive caffeine and tea should be avoided, which means it stimulates the brain on a higher level. If the brain gets stimulated by tea and caffeine, oh my goodness, the brain is actually stimulating, and now you're taking these excessively, it's going to overstimulate, and you get into maniac phases. You can also get abusive. You can also start to beat up. You can stay up all night. You can do all kinds of nonsense. So you should avoid tea and caffeine. Avoid junk food and fast food. During bipolar disorder, they tend to eat a lot of junk food because they crave for that reward, which means serotonin is low and the reward circuitry is imbalanced. They'll eat anything. They'll even eat fast food, junk food, and they want to keep eating. If they'd eaten 15 minutes ago, they still want to eat more because they're not feeling satiated, they're not feeling satisfied. They want to eat more. Then comes excessive carbs due to low level of serotonin. They keep eating a lot of carbs. Excessive eating of meat, one type of meat, they'll keep eating it a lot. And they'll keep repeating that part of eating that meat, excessive eating, which should be avoided. It turns toxic and it gains a lot of weight. Then comes sugary drink and energy drink. Please avoid. If serotonin increase a part of, excessive carbs and sugar, sweet serotonin, to meet up that level, you want to feel happy, you want to feel good. So you want to take this, and then stimulating during these medications, especially those lithium and the other ones that I've talked about. You take those medications, even anti-seizures. Sometimes they give it to the patients. They take that, but they're not happy, so they want to feel that energetic. They want to feel stimulation. Taking these medications taking these energy drink can overstimulate your brain and can change the wiring of your brain, which is very dangerous. Then comes the part of munching on a bag of chips and watching for salt intake. Munching on chips. Bipolar disorder loves this. Keep munching it, watching TV, munching it. It's a full bag of chips, they'll keep eating it. Because they love the part of the saltiness. And they'll eat that salt. And when they satiate, they satisfy that salt, they jump to sweet. Then they want to eat something sweet. And when they eat that sweet, then they immediately, after eating that sweet, they feel like they want something more. So they jump for the carbs, they jump for deep fried food, that junk food, to satiate their palate. In this way, they start to gain a lot of weight, and it's very difficult for them to keep up with that weight. They start to gain a lot of weight during these times. And when you get to this point, it's very dangerous for the people to stay normal. And if they keep gaining weight, then you got to watch out for your heart. They can, have heart disease. They can also have, problems with the high blood pressure, thyroid problems. They can have problems with their kidney, liver, pancreas. It's very dangerous because the speed, at the rapid speed they're gaining that weight, it's very dangerous. So we need to watch out for these intakes in bipolar disorder. Now that we've reached to this section, we come to the last section of bipolar disorder. And I'm really, really excited to talk on this, the last part, because I want you to understand that what exactly you can do as a bipolar disorder, apart from medications and therapies. Because we know that low levels of serotonin can cause hindrance to your therapy as well. Because as soon as you take these medications, you're not so much interested in taking those therapies. You'll be disinterested, or you might just, feel bored about it, no matter how much they tell you. But when you go home, you repeat the same cycle, and you don't do that anymore. When you come back and say, I did this, not much difference. And then you ask too many questions as well. What should I do this and what should I do that? But you don't do anything on the bottom level. Because the satiate, the palate is still moving. Serotonin is low. You want to satisfy. You want to stimulate your brain with different kinds of energy drinks, alcohol, drugs, whatever, but you want to stimulate it. So now we come to the last section of how do you manage all of this, the end part, and I hope this is going to help you. So as you can see, watch out for anti-stimulation activities. Anti-stimulation activities means practice include going to bed and getting up at regular hours, making sure the room is comfortable, avoid screen time and potentially stressful situation before bed, not eating a large meal too soon to sleeping, avoid or limiting alcohol intake. These are the most important thing that I want to talk on. These are anti-stimulation activities. The number one is that regular hour bed. If you are stimulating your brain, then you cannot sleep at night. Then you'll complain about that, I'm into insomnia. For several days or for weeks, you won't get sleep. Even after taking certain medications of mood stabilizers, you will see that the brain is overstimulation and the patient cannot sleep. So the patient complain about these medications and say like, you know what, I cannot sleep because I'm taking these medications and I cannot sleep. I'm staying awake. And what they do is they use that screening time. And that screening time in the mobile phone, they're lying down, they're screening on that mobile phone and they cannot sleep. So insomnia increases. So naturally you got to do this. Don't rely on medication. How? Excuse me. How? Let's say you could possibly do some breathing exercises. Number one. Number two, your room should be comfortable, low light. Number three, instead of watching anything on a screen, what you do is switch that light to soothing eyes light on your mobile phone. You must have seen the screen has the capacity to kind of have that screen light options. Screen light option means with a bright light, and then there is this night light. These display, you'll find in a display session where eye comfort options might be there. Eye comfort means when you switch it on, it makes you feel easy on your eyes. This also helps. So when you use a mobile phone at night during the evening, switch that light to eye comfort lights. There'll be an option to switch that to eye comfort. And when you watch on that mobile phone something, your eyes will be comfortable, which means it won't stimulate more. This is that first option. It doesn't mean that you have to use a mobile phone. I'm saying during the night hours, if you change the light setting, then give you that soothing effect to your eyes as well. Because light also affects your circadian cycles. So if you keep it to the smooth, the high comfort zone, it's way much better. At the evening time, schedule those lights to switch to the high comfort zone, and it's really helpful to keep you calm. So that's the first thing you can do. The second thing is that lesser use of your TV, your laptop, and your mobile phone. 3 things you should be careful of. Third thing, avoid eating heavy meal when you are lying down, because when you eat heavy meal, your sleep is disturbed because all of that section is going down to digest your food. Eat meal, let it get digested, and go to sleep. And the fourth thing is, my favorite is to sit down and listen to some calm music before you go to sleep. I love calming music. Before going to bed, sit down, listen to it. Loosen up your hands and legs, just listen to it, and boom, you are going to fall asleep. These are natural ways to increase the calmness and serotonin inside of you, because the natural way you release it, you'll be able to control your bipolar disorder. And the natural way you don't release it, and you take those medications, your bipolar disorder won't be in control for too long. So you have to practice it. You have to do it on your own, which is why it's going to help you in comforting yourself. Alcohol will cut the part of serotonin. It will increase dopamine, which will confuse your brain. And it's going to make your brain imbalance, which means you can get into manic phase, you can get abusive, you can start to beat up the other person, and all of that. So please watch out to stay calm. Practice to stay calm. Then practice increasing serotonin every day. The second point is very good. Practice to increase serotonin. Serotonin levels are low, people experience this craving of carbs and sweet foods, which means a low level in your body. So don't take them. How do you increase serotonin? By activities. Activities what? Like, massage therapy, yoga, acupuncture, and meditation. These are the reality of increasing serotonin. This is why I put in here, serotonin can be increased in a natural way, and the more you get into all of this, you involve, you're going to feel happy, you're going to feel relaxed, the body will get balance, and it will keep you in balance. Especially the deep tissue massage. It will release all of the toxins from your muscles, and it's going to make you feel good. Acupuncture is also good because acupuncture means it will release the blockages in your nervous systems. It will flow good, the immune system will get better, and you'll feel good. Yoga and meditation to keep you in control. Your impulsivity will reduce if you continue to do yoga and meditation. All of this is a cycle to keep and increase serotonin and keep you in control. The third thing is, a healthy, balanced diet with fruits and vegetables. You have to keep yourself on diet, and please, please, please eat lots of fruits and vegetables. It will nourish your brain and it will keep your thoughts in balance. You'll feel good. You'll feel good about yourself. If you eat unhealthy food, junk food, toxic food, too much of sweets can also increase the part of your dopamine receptors, which means it can switch you off quickly. It will change your mood swings if you eat too much of sweets. It may feel you good, low after eating a lot of sweets, then you want to eat carbs, you want to supplement it with something else, and that is very bad. So control on your sweets and carbs is important. Bipolar disorder. Then comes practice self-control activities. Let's say if there is sweets in front of you, tell your brain, reminder, I'm not going to eat it. If someone says some words, control yourself. Try to stay calm. Practice yourself to remind yourself that it is my function from inside is irritating me. I shouldn't be afraid of this. I'll stay calm. Someone offers you alcohol, stay calm. I have bipolar disorder. I'm not drinking. Practice to hold yourself. How do you do that? Let's say if there's an impulsivity. What you do is you hug yourself. Touching yourself improves the part of sensitivity. Somatic sensory will give you a part of activation on the DLPFC. Try to, rub your shoulders, your arms with both hands. Rub it and close your eyes and breathe and try to stay calm. When you do these things, it'll keep you in calm and intact. You'll realize that I don't need to be impulsive. I don't need to do any of this. Keep a reminder in your head that I have this problem and I shouldn't be impulsive. Once you do these activities, it'll keep you in control. The third thing is omega-3 fish oil, cold water fish, nuts, and plants oil. Natural way to improve. Ask your doctor if you're taking medications. I am not responsible for this. Ask your doctor that whether should I take this or not, that I can involve this. It's well and good. Why? Because we want to increase the good fatty acids in the brain that can improve the part of your learning and memory, attention, and also increase the part of your focus and keep you in control. Good fat is good for the brain. And omega-3 fatty acids, people with depression may also have low level of omega-3 in the blood, which means a lot of consume of fish can also help scientists have researched, that found bipolar disorder is less common in countries where people consume a lot of fish. Imagine cold water fish like tuna and sardines. People who intake that cold water fish is very good for omega-3 fish oil, and people who eat a lot of fish in those countries have less bipolar disorder, which means if you have these fish oils, it is beneficial for bipolar disorder. It's supernatural, no side effect, and it's good for the brain. Then when we talk on magnesium, I want to talk on the last section. Magnesium have a role in regulating mood and both manic and depressive episodes, and work with the medications to make them effectively. Chronic low levels can increase the risk of high blood pressure, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and osteoporosis. Magnesium plays an important role, and if you want to increase the part of to rapidly get cured with bipolar disorder, can be cured. Yes, it can with all these natural things. But the genetics will change with time. This is a natural thing. So the body naturally will start to change. If you're going to take medication, nothing changes. But if you do these natural activities, it will change you for good. And magnesium, talk to your doctor. Do a test on magnesium, and then finally take these magnesium tablets, and your life is going to be changed. Apart from this, you can also opt for, yes, electric shocks do help if the medications and therapy does not help you much. I know it's expensive, but it's good for the brain. It's not bad. Electric shocks means stimulating the brain regions like prefrontal cortex and stimulating the brain regions like DLPFC, VMPFC, stimulating the part of the microglia, in the right directions. So the brain will start to rewire. But it will take time, because only that is not going to help. Shocks will keep you in balance. Then you start to move forward, take those therapies and start to move in a natural condition. Force yourself to be in a calm, relaxing, and peaceful environment. Increase the part of your love in you and stay calm. That is the only thing. Stay calm. Do activities that's going to make you, help you stay calm, like painting, gardening, something that really feels you good, relax, not stimulating your brain. Activities involved that keeps you in calm. All of these things are very good for bipolar disorder, and I'm going to end here today. I'm going to come up with more of these videos as well. I'll come up on schizophrenics and autism as well. This was just the beginning of all of this. I'm going to come up more in the future videos. And now that comes to the part of please subscribe. I'm requesting you to subscribe this channel, because I'm working really hard to make these happen for you all. I'm coming from the space head of neuroscience. I'm giving you as maximum knowledge I can. And please, if you have any questions, email to us at preciousbrainlab@gmail.com, and you will see that you're going to hear from us as well. If you have any problems, we're going to talk on those conditions as well, one-on-one, in person. And as to my understanding, we're going to give you as much as answer we can to your questions, to give you more clarity and to help you. My part of my research comes from the space head of deeper evaluation on animals and human beings. So requesting you to please please subscribe. I'm here to help you. I'm here to give you maximum information that benefits your life. So I'm going to end here today. I will see you on a new video next time. Stay calm, stay healthy, and thank you all of you who are watching this. God bless you all, and thank you for watching this video and supporting me as well. Thank you so much.